I've eaten a lot of raccoon. Yes. The answer is yes. And I've eaten it hunting. I've actually had it served by my mom at the table away from hunting. And I have eaten raccoon. And yes, it's not uncommon at all. I'll tell you something that is one of my favorites is squirrel. And it's wonderful, and my mother could do a great job of it. And we all had our favorite pieces, and my dad and sister, I have one sibling, a sister, and they would fight over, not fight, but my mom and I, it was just my sister and I as far as siblings, my mom and I wouldn't even ask for the brain in a squirrel.
Oh, man.
And delicious, seriously.
My dad loves cow brain.
My sister always got it, or my dad.
A fight over the brain. Jerry?
Well, good morning, good people. Mark Holmes here with my buddy Cowboy Joe Boo, as well as the Funky Chicken. And as always, I want to say thank you all for watching, commenting, subscribing, and being part of the Joe Boo Sports Report. Without you guys, as well as you ladies, you know that this literally does not work. Hope everybody's having a great day. It's finally freaking Friday. NFC, AFC championship games this weekend. One of our nemesis, the Commanders with the left hand up, or the angry ass Eagles, the angry birds, will be in the Super Bowl. And where does that leave the Dallas Cowboys? Well, let me say to my wife, Miss Tracy, who is so creative, you gotta love. Oh, let's move our Bet US for a second here. The SS Cowboys headed for the iceberg. Oh, shit! Oh, shit! And since we're mentioning Bet US, shout out to Bet US, and don't forget to use the promo code YouTube150 so you can get 150% matching on your first 3 deposits. And just because the football season is just about over, hey, there's still more fun and games out there with casino games. And if you are in crypto, you can get a 200% matching using crypto. So definitely check out BetUS and use that promo code YouTube150. So yes, the SS Cowboys, are we headed for the iceberg? Oh shit! Oh shit! Or have the Dallas Cowboys figured some shit out? So last night I was going, I had to get back down here to Red Brick House. It's like 160 miles or 150 miles of driving and things. And I went by, and because of my buddy Jet D, my wife loves pho. I guess I'm saying pho or pho. The Vietnamese soup, okay? It's basically made out of bones, which is kind of interesting that I'm looking at leg bones here, because we also had Diggs, who had his knee surgery yesterday, where they literally take, this is what they're doing with Diggs. I digress. But what they do is the cartilage, which is basically the cushion between your knees, gets worn out. I have no cartilage in my left knee, and which is why I've got bone on bone, and literally the top one has actually dug a deeper groove into the left orbit, and which is why my knee is literally cocked like this. This is what you're headed for when you have knee issues. But worse than that is you get arthritis that grows in the joint, which slows it down and can be painful and things. So Diggs has cartilage issues, and what they're trying to do is they basically are grinding the bone out where the cartilage goes, and they've taken a piece of bone from before, basically did a scope, get a piece of bone, and they grind it up with the cartilage, and they make a paste, and they have a slot there on the knee joint, and they put that paste on there. They drill holes into the bone because cartilage does not have blood flow. So they drill the holes into the bone so that way there's blood flow in there, and the hope is it's about 71% recovery, 100% recovery from it. Noah Brown had the same deal done with them, that the cartilage paste grows new cartilage. It's amazing just to even think about it. So as I'm sitting here with all these, big leg bones from a cow to make this soup. I'm sitting here thinking about Diggs' knee. Be that as it may, I think I've actually learned something about the Cowboys today, or at least it finally dawned on me. But anyway, yesterday going through all of this stuff because I went to a butcher shop and I met the butcher there. I was wearing a Cowboy sweatshirt, and he looked at me, and it was kind of like the get out, like get out while you can. He's older than I am. And I was like, he said, "You're a Cowboy fan?" And I said, "Yeah." I said, "I'm a diehard Cowboy fan, and I'm dying hard right now." And he said, "I've been a fan since the Ice Bowl." I said, "Well, you're a little bit older than me." I said, "I've been around. I was here when the Ice Bowl happened, but I don't remember it." And so we bonded. We bonded. Nice guy. I'm going to go back to that butcher shop on a regular just because it's a fellow suffering fan. And going through all of this drive yesterday and getting there and getting finally here and first hearing that literally hearing that Kellen Moore, that pretty much, excuse me, not Kellen, God. Okay, not Kellen Moore. Brian Schottenheimer, basically it was a done deal. So we're going through all that. Then we heard about a mystery candidate of Rich Batista, I'm talking about our former special teams guy. And then you're hearing that Jerry Jones talked to Pete Carroll. And so, of course, everybody's going, "Oh, Pete Carroll, that'd be a great fit. That'd be better than Brian Schottenheimer stuff." But then I started thinking because, see, Brian Schottenheimer worked for Pete Carroll. And you don't know what the relationship is with it. And so the question in my mind was it Pete Carroll calling Jerry to say, "Hey, Jerry, I'd like to take that job"? Or was it Jerry calling Pete Carroll and saying, "Hey, Pete, what's going on? How's the job hunting going? What do you think about Brian Schottenheimer?" That's what my thought was last night. And then I see an article in the Dallas Morning News, and they kind of said the same thing. The Dallas Cowboys search took another turn Thursday with news that former Seattle coach Pete Carroll has spoken with team owner Jerry Jones. Two people with knowledge of the search confirmed told the Dallas Morning News. The conversation with Carroll was described as an informal, no interview has been scheduled. Team officials have interviewed offensive coordinator Brian Schottenheimer, Kellen Moore, Robert Saleh, Leslie Frazier for the vacancy. Jones has also had discussions with Colorado Hall of Fame coach Deion Sanders, but with Carroll, no interviews with Sanders has been scheduled. So I thought there was in here that there was the question. Carroll, 73, is one of three coaches to win a Super Bowl and a national championship in college. He coached Seattle from 2010 to 23, going 137, 89, and 1 with 2 Super Bowl appearances. He led the Seahawks to Super Bowl title in 2013. Overall, Carroll has a record of 170, 120, and he coached. So in here someplace, I'm not going to go through the whole article, but this is Calvin Watkins. In there, the question was he calling about the job opening, or was he calling to talk about Brian Schottenheimer? And so here's another little twist in here was yesterday, Calvin Watkins has truly become the point man for everything now. So Dak Prescott is kind of giving Brian Schottenheimer his seal of approval as well. He texts him, "He'll be ready for the next step." Clarence Hill quotes Dak saying, having told him, he has the right personality and brain. And see, this is where, everybody is going crazy right now, okay? And I hope that a year or two from now that people go through and say, "Man, Brian Schottenheimer was a great hire." That we didn't see it coming. We didn't see it coming, but, Brian Schottenheimer, that was the right move for this organization. And the reason I'm not ready to go ahead and go off of the cliff is because, see, I still keep using Sean McVay as a model. Sean McVay before he became head coach of the Rams, was the offensive coordinator under Jay Gruden for the Commanders. The end of RG3, the beginning of Kirk Cousins. Now, you can say what you want about Kirk Cousins not being a great player and stuff, but you have to wonder if Kirk Cousins became a good quarterback and got more money than just about anybody because of what he learned from Sean McVay. Be that as it may, we look at him and we say, he's a genius. Brian Schottenheimer was here when Dak Prescott had the runner-up MVP season. He was also coordinator for the Seattle Seahawks in the waning years of their greatness with Russell Wilson with 4,200 yards, 40 TDs, and 13 interceptions. His best season of his career. So he's worked with quarterbacks. He knows the personnel. He knows the system. He knows the ins and outs of the Joneses. Having worked for him, I believe that he will actually, as opposed to bringing in somebody else right now, he's already in the building. He already knows where everything is. He knows the players. He knows the quarterback. And, of course, there's position flex because now you've got your offensive coordinator / head coach. That's a position that now Stephen Jones ain't got to pay. You know, we really believe in Brian Schottenheimer because, you know, Brian brings a lot to the table because he's willing to actually take up 2 coaching positions for 1 salary. And see, when you can do that, well, that saves a whole lot more money. So we can use the money to buy gas for the yacht. You know, the gas for the yacht, it ain't cheap, and it's got to come from somewhere. And see, the thing with coaches, yet the coach's money and compensation, that's not part of the salary cap that comes in from the NFL with the gross receipts. That's actually money that comes off the top. That's actually our profit. So instead of paying Deion Sanders, say $18 million a year on a 5-year deal, we go ahead and we get Brian Schottenheimer for, say, $5 million. Well, that's $13 million right there. And you take $13 million times 5 years, because you know we're going to run that contract for all 5 years. We're not going to waste a single day of having that guy fired. So you're talking about $68 million in money we save just on not bringing in Deion versus Brian Schottenheimer. And that doesn't include the about $2 million a year that we'd be paying a offensive coordinator. So that's another $10 million. And, you know, I like money. I like a lot of money. I can't get enough of it. And it's money, you know, as my dad said, it's bigger than winning, and that's money. So I want to get as much as I can. And this is a value add, a value move that I all fully endorse. It's hard on the brain doing Stephen Jones. But I realized something, though. I have the shirt I was wearing yesterday. Shout out to Miss Tracy. Jerry and Stephen Jones, Dumb and Dumber. The Cowboys just aren't creative. Do you realize that? They're not creative with anything. Everything they do is opining for something they did in the past. They hire Brian Schottenheimer because, well, Brian Schottenheimer, they know him. He's in their comfort zone. They talk about Jason Witten. They know him. They talk about Deion. They know him. There were rumors about Aaron Glenn. He played for him. He knows them. Everything they do is like they're afraid of something new. And when you start thinking about the Cowboys, they're not creative. See, Stephen Jones, when it comes to the cap, I don't know if he's just not creative or if he just doesn't understand it. Because, see, other teams figure out ways to maneuver the cap. You know, every year the New Orleans Saints, and I'm not saying the New Orleans Saints are doing a whole lot of winning, but every year for like the 10 years, New Orleans has been over the cap like $80 million. And somehow they still find ways to sign their players and sign free agents. Now, I'm not going to say that they've made the best picks at free agents and things, but they've had more success than the Cowboys have in the last 30 years. The Eagles, somehow, the Eagles have no problem signing everybody. We signed CD and Dak, and, we're in financial hole because other teams are creative and understand how to maneuver the cap. So we end up taking all kinds of hits. Now, we have ways. This is where it's not that it's rocket science. It's not that it's unknown that they're reinventing the wheel. Mike Fisher and, others out there, Jeff Kavanaugh, they've gone through and just done the simple ways that they can create money. Now, we got Zach Martin, and we've got DeMarcus Lawrence. We got Brandon Cooks out there that are all on expiring contracts. We have voidable years that are there that instead of taking all their dead money hit the first year, you could spread it out over time. The salary cap is going to increase again, maybe about another $30 million. The Cowboys could do things if they wanted to and were creative. But it always seems like it's too confusing. And it's going to be difficult. It's going to be difficult to sign people this year. There's people don't understand how you don't understand how to maneuver the cap. You don't understand. And that's the thing more than anything else is I don't understand why it's still that Cap Boy has been our capologist for all these years. And you can't look at this and say we're managing the cap any better now than we did 20 years ago. It's been a disaster. So we'll see if today is a day for Brian Schotteneimer. I think it will be. Going into the weekend, the Cowboys want to dominate the news to overcome their lack of being in the playoffs. Let's check out Albert Breer talking about the situation here.
What are the Cowboys doing?
Another one where I'm not sure they are even quite sure, which is mind-blowing to me because they had a year to prepare for this, Dan. It was no secret. They were the ones that created this situation for themselves where Mike McCarthy was in a contract year. I actually believe that if he had term left on his contract, they would have held on to him for another year. But because they created that situation for themselves, things got awkward after the year. There was no real negotiation, and they cut it off, 8 days after other teams are already into their coaching searches. And so they went into this thing behind, and they were playing catch up. It kind of cut them off from talking to the Lions assistants and the Chiefs assistants when other teams were doing that. And now you see them leaning back on familiarity, and the names are different, of course.
But why aren't they interviewing Ben Johnson? Why didn't they Zoom Ben Johnson?
Because it's too late. They didn't have a chance to. Because the rules say if you're like for the teams that had the buys, right, Lions and Chiefs, that window's only open through the wild card round. So,
but they put themselves in this position, though, Albert.
Right. Then that's what I'm saying. They created that situation for themselves. Like if they had said on Monday of whatever the date was, the Monday right after the season, if they had just said, all right,
Mike
that's it,
fired.
we're walking away from Mike McCarthy, then they certainly could have gone and talked to Ben Johnson. I think Mike Vrabel would have been really interested in that job. And part of the reason why the Patriots moved as fast as they did was that they knew there was a relationship there between Vrabel and the Joneses, and the Joneses would have been really interested in Mike Vrabel.
You're making this even worse for Cowboys that they didn't get rid of Mike McCarthy, so they could have interviewed Ben Johnson, and Mike Vrabel probably would have been interested in taking that job.
Don't forget about Bill Belichick.
Enjoy Brian Schottenheimer as your new head coach.
And I think, like, to me, isn't the tell, though, Dan, like who they're looking at? Like, what do you do if you're really lost? You'll lean back on familiarity, right? Deion Sanders, Kellen Moore, Brian Schottenheimer, Jason Witten. Yeah. Like, the names that you're hearing here are all names they're familiar with, which is exactly what you would do if you didn't have a plan, right? Like, so, it's I don't know. I mean, like looking at where that team is, they're in a funky spot from a contract standpoint. Obviously, they just signed Dak and CeeDee Lamb. They're in for another big one this offseason with Micah Parsons, and that's going to be a big box decision. I think waiting on him, now he's going to ask for $40 million a year, and I'd say as a player, he's certainly worth it. So they're in this weird spot from a team standpoint, and like now you look at where they're at. I mean, is the answer for them what they did in 2007 when they brought back Jason Garrett, and Jason Garrett was sort of the coach in waiting, and then they had Wade Phillips as the experienced hand there. Is that what they're going to wind up doing with Brian Schottenheimer and Jason Witten? Are they going to go back to the well with Kellen Moore, which would kind of be what the plan had been a few years ago, that Kellen Moore would be the future head coach of the Cowboys? Do they really take a swing and do Deion Sanders? I mean, all the names you're hearing now are names they're familiar with, and I just, you do have to question whether or not their thinking has gotten way too insular there.
Talking to Albert Breer, the Monday Morning Quarterback, the mmqb.com is where you can find his articles. The Raiders, Tom Brady doesn't lose very often, but...
So, as always, this is what I always say. You know what? One of my football coaches, Coach Ned, he'd always say, excuse my language, if you're going to F up at full speed. There's nothing worse than making a mistake but taking forever to do it. And that is the truth. And this, every single time they wait. And I don't know why they wait. They wait for Dak contract. You could have signed Dak the year before when everybody was just getting in the 50s. But you waited, now he's 60. They did the same thing back when they could have gotten him under 30, but they waited, had to franchise tag him, and then he's $40 million a year. They wait on Zeke Elliott and tell you we're not going to reset the market, and then you get to training camp and he's got a gun to your head and you reset the market. You wait on CeeDee Lamb when everybody was below $30 million a year. You wait and make sure he's the last one to get paid, on top of him missing training camp. All of these things that you have done have hampered the team. You don't have the money to spend on free agents. You don't have the will to try and maneuver the cap. You hamstring the coach by not having a full deck and complement of players in camp. You wait to sign defensive tackles till the end of training camp to see who gets cut. It's amazing that the Cowboys do anything as far as winning. And I'm going to go back on my soapbox and say, if the Cowboys didn't have Tony Romo and Dak Prescott, you would be looking at one of the worst teams in football. That is the truth. Those two guys have covered up for a lot of problems with the Cowboys. Only problem is, nobody is enough to cover all that up to get them to a Super Bowl. Now, you can tell me it's all Dak's fault. Dak sucks and everything else. He's not a winner. He's not. Oh, fine, whatever. You're free to believe whatever you want to believe. But we've seen times without Dak Prescott, and they haven't looked that good. They haven't looked that good. I don't know that anything changes. This process, I think it will be okay with Brian Schottenheimer, but we're still dealing with the main underlying problem, and that is the Joneses, and they take too much time to decide anything. Basically, you could have had Bill Belichick. You could have had Mike Vrabel. You might have had Aaron Glenn, but the Cowboys didn't even get themselves in a position to try and get him because of themselves. Don't be mad at Brian Schottenheimer. Don't be mad at the players on the field. Be mad at the people who put you in the position. The ones that are steering the SS Cowboys into the iceberg. Have a good day, good people, and you know how it is. You know how it is. I got to get out of here.
I can't stand it anymore. I gotta get out of here. I've got to get out of here.
Calm down. Get a hold of yourself.
Stewardess, please let me handle this.
I've got to get
Calm down. Now get back to your seat. I'll take care of this. Calm down. Calm down. Get a hold of yourself.
Doctor, you're one on the phone. Everything's gonna be all right. Please.
Sister, please, I'll handle this.
Yourself.
I've got to get out of